The return of Eleanor Hart. Eleanor Hart adjusted the strap of her cream-colored dress, the finest thing she owned, though it felt tight and unfamiliar compared to her usual slacks and button-ups. She slid a folder of musical programs under her arm as she moved through the marble corridors of the Holloway estate. At 32, she'd spent the last 6 years coordinating events for Glencourt Productions. Always behind the scenes, always safely distant from the spotlight, she once knew too well that tonight's charity gala for the Holloway Foundation was a pinnacle affair. Gowns dusted with crystals, men in tuxedos that cost more than her rent, and the looming presence of Bernard Holloway himself, the silver-haired titan of East Coast wealth and power. Eleanor had been stationed at the estate for days now, overseeing lighting, catering, and entertainment. All she had to do was survive the night. That was her mantra: get through it, then disappear like she always did. Her fingers brushed against the edge of the grand piano centered beneath 3 glittering chandeliers in the ballroom. It was a Steinway concert, grand, sleek, proud, and powerful, just like the memories it stirred. She yanked her hand back. Some memories still stung too sharply to touch. Ms. Hart, her supervisor, Joel, appeared at her side looking pale. "We've got a problem. The pianist, we just got the call. He's sick. Flu or something. Not coming." Eleanor blinked. "What? But he's the highlight of the program." "I know. Mr. Holloway is furious. You were overseeing entertainment, so I get to break the bad news," she finished, her stomach turning. She didn't have time to strategize. Bernard Holloway was already gliding into the room, a champagne flute in one hand and expectations in the other. Even at 60, he exuded charm hardened by money and habit. His steel gray eyes scanned the space and landed on her. "Miss Hart," he said, "everything better be flawless tonight." "Yes, Mr. Holloway," she said, bracing herself. "However, our pianist has fallen ill and won't make it." His expression tightened. "Unacceptable. This entire evening was built around the music. We're contacting replacements, but this late." "I don't pay your firm to deliver problems," he said icily. "I pay for results. Perhaps it's time to find another agency." Eleanor swallowed hard. The guests were beginning to arrive, their laughter and designer perfumes sweeping into the ballroom like a tidal wave. She tried to offer alternatives. "We could move directly to dinner." "No," Holloway replied with surgical certainty. "We'll find another way to entertain." Then he raised his hand, and the crowd quieted instantly. All attention turned to him as he announced, "Our scheduled pianist has fallen ill, but we're fortunate to have among us a woman who, I discovered, trained at Juilliard." Eleanor froze. "Ms. Hart," he said with a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes, "why don't you come demonstrate your hidden talent?" Murmurs spread. Eleanor's breath caught. "Mr. Holloway, I haven't performed in years." "Nonsense," he replied. "Talent doesn't just vanish." She glanced around the room. She saw judgment in the guests' eyes, anticipation wrapped in condescension. She realized what this was: a setup. She was no longer an event coordinator. She was the evening spectacle. Bernard expected her to stumble, to embarrass herself, to give his elite guests something to whisper about on the drive home. "If it helps, you can start with something simple," he added. "Perhaps chopsticks?" Laughter rippled through the ballroom. Eleanor felt her face flush. The humiliation was thick enough to taste. She turned toward the piano, her shoes clicking on the marble floor. If she refused, she'd lose her job. If she played badly, she'd be mocked. Her career, dignity, everything was on the line. She sat down on the bench, her hands trembling over the keys. The piano's polished ivory glistened under the lights like a polished trap. Her breathing grew shallow. She hadn't performed since that night at Carnegie Hall, when panic had gripped her mid-performance and left her paralyzed on stage. That silence, devastating, career-ending silence, still echoed in her mind. She closed her eyes. She thought of her mother, who had cleaned houses to pay for her lessons. She remembered the words of her old teacher. "When you play, Eleanor, you don't just play. You speak." When she opened her eyes, her fingers dropped to the keys. She didn't choose chopsticks. She chose Liszt. The opening notes of La Campanella drifted across the marble room like drops of rain falling on still water. The room hushed instantly. A few people shifted in place. One guest gasped quietly. Another whispered, "Is she really attempting Liszt?" Yes, she was the piece unfolded. Eleanor's hands danced across the keyboard, her body swaying with the rhythm. Her technique, once forged in endless hours of practice and pain, was still there, buried but intact. The infamous right-hand jumps, the swift, bell-like trills, the octave-leaping madness, all emerged from her fingers like liquid fire. The audience stood motionless, enchanted. No clinking glasses, no whispers, just awe. Bernard Holloway remained frozen near a column, his face transformed from smug amusement to stunned disbelief. As Eleanor drove the piece toward its blistering conclusion, the room felt less like a ballroom and more like a sacred space. The final notes echoed into silence. She sat still, her chest rising and falling, hands suspended above the keys. And then, applause, thunderous, unrelenting, real. The crowd surged toward her. Strangers offered praise, business cards, opportunities. "You must perform at my gala," someone cried. "We need you on our board," another said. The woman in red murmured, "I was at Carnegie Hall that night." What a comeback. Still seated, Eleanor allowed herself one moment to look at Bernard Holloway. He nodded. It wasn't an apology, but it was an acknowledgement. That was enough. "Play something else," a woman in pearls called. This time, Eleanor smiled. She played Chopin. Not for them. For herself. And when she stood once more to another standing ovation, a woman from the Westchester Arts Foundation approached her. "We're seeking a new director for our piano competition," she said. "I believe you're it." Weeks later, Eleanor sat in her new office. A modest baby grand rested in the corner. On her wall was a framed article, "The Hidden Maestro." Eleanor Hart's return to glory. Her phone buzzed. Her next appointment had arrived. A 12-year-old girl named Mia, nervous and hopeful, clutching sheet music in her small hands. "My mom cleans houses," Mia said quietly. "She says music helps us dream." Eleanor smiled and gestured to the piano. "Let's hear what you've got." When Mia finished her piece, shy but promising, Eleanor saw herself in the girl's trembling hands. "The scholarship is yours," she said. That night, as Eleanor passed the Holloway estate on her way home, its windows glittering in the dark, she felt no anger, only gratitude. Bernard Holloway had tried to mock her, but instead, he had reminded her of who she was, and she had reclaimed the music that never truly left her.